Hi, and welcome to another episode of If It's in the Mind, It Can Be Managed, the Mind Management Mentors podcast. I'm your host, Cuddy Cudworth, the UK's leading mind management coach, self-titled, I'll have you know. But thank you very much for liking all the podcasts so far. And remember, like and subscribe and comment and share and let us know what you want to see on the Mind Management Mentors podcast. We're coming up to 35,000 subscribers at this moment in time. And that is pretty awesome, but I would love straight up to get to 100,000 because we're talking about some really powerful subjects that can make a difference in your life. However, we're going to get started with an extremely valuable voice in the world of energy. And I think that's a really important part because we're going to be talking about subjects today that are some people would class as woo-woo, out of dimension, different kind of things, but we want to know the story of why it's worked for you and why it works for others. So, as if you were on blind date, Oliver, introduce yourself. What you do, where you're from, and why'd you do it?
Good day. Yes, I'm Oliver Dolby. People know me as the Soul Doctor. And simply put, I help people get into the best energetic health of their lives. And I do this through a number of different ways. Well, firstly, it's 30 years of experience, 30 years of playing with energy, doing different modalities, learning with different teachers. And more recently, the last sort of 10 years is really redefining that and bringing what I've learned over all those years into the 21st century. Because I think long are the days of when healing took loads and loads and loads and loads and loads of time. Because we don't have time in the 21st century. We're distracted. We've got people wanting our attention. We've got phones pinging. We've got emails to answer. We've got messages to respond to. And we're also in this idea that things happen instantaneously. And we can see that in the world around us, how so much happens so much quicker. So it got me thinking, why can't we take our healing and make it happen instantaneously? Why do we have to go and have things take time? And especially when I was working with some of my clients in the past, I'd see them go through these traumatic patterns. We'd heal the pattern, and then a year later down the line, they'd be reinventing that pattern again. How could we stop people from reliving what they've already healed? And yes, there are people out there that I guess, are going to be those therapy busters. They just want to prove the therapist wrong, and they go around there ticking with the box, been here, been there, been to hypnotherapist, been to Reiki, been to quantum energetics, been over here enough. They're all rubbish. Uh, but those are few and far between generally. So it really started me looking at how people operate in this world. What are the systems that they're running? What are the beliefs that they have that they're using to direct them down this path? And can I get in there early enough to divert it back to where they want to go? Can we get a block in there or do something that's going to stop that pattern from repeating? Of course, when we start to look at the mind and things that happen to the mind, we really are trying to get in someone's head, but we can't because we could only base it on what we ourselves have done. What have I lived through? So if I've got a client who's got a lot of anger, have I dealt with my anger? Have I managed to figure out me before I can figure out them? And it really opened this whole sort of, for me, this whole sort of box, this minefield box of just observing how people respond in the world, and then observing how I responded to the same sort of situation. And then realizing that the way I responded wasn't going to be the same way as the way you would respond. And we realize that, we go, okay, we have to redefine how we attack or address that problem. And so I started to look outside of the box. I started to look outside of what I knew and what I'd been taught over countless modalities that I've, like I said, 30 years worth of modalities and trainings. And could we take out the bits that really worked and put
Mm.
those together in a way that works for everybody in the 21st century? Uh, so first for me was that it had to start with the energy. And I started to think about, the Hermetic principle, the law of correspondence, which is as above, so below, as within, so without. So if there's a problem inside, it means that there's going to be a problem outside.
Oh,
Going to
yeah.
be something outside that's going to show that off. And it might not be realized yet. And so I started to look at the world from that perspective because it's much easier to, for me, energy as an energy healer, to work with the outside body than it is to work with the physical body itself. Now,
Mm.
there are hands-on techniques which you can use, absolutely work wonders, but it's much easier to work with the space around people, and it's not really invasive either. So let's take something that's quite simple, like anger. We all have anger. We all get angry at certain things. We get poked. But let's just take an example that you've had a really, really bad day. It's Monday morning, you've got a whole diary of things planned, and you just about leave the house and you spill your coffee all down your white shirt. And you get into anger because it isn't time to change your shirt. So you put a top on, and then everything goes wrong. Right? Everything goes wrong. And you have another 15 coffees. Okay, so you're really highly strung by now. Now, what happening energetically, as I start to observe, is that those people had lots and lots of holes in their aura, in the energy around them. And then I got to realize, well, if we've got holes in the space around us, that means that stuff can get in. And
Mm.
stuff's going to get in that's maybe not what you want to get in. And if you're vibrating at, let's say, the frequency of anger, right, which is fairly low. It's not at the bottom of the list, but it's fairly low. You're going to attract energetic parasites that are going to want to feed on that energy. And so, what I start to see in people when I start to look through a different sort of lens, if you will, I could see that these people were full of parasites. Because if you imagine, let's just say you take some food out of the fridge, put it in your kitchen, and then the phone goes or the front door, and you come back 20 minutes later. There's a fly in the kitchen. Where did that fly come from? It was not there before you left, but it could smell or feel or sense that you've taken food out. And if you leave it a bit longer, that fly is going to call its buddies along, and you're going to have three flies in your kitchen. So if an energetic parasite gets into your aura, the space around you, and it's not doing anything wrong, by the way, it's just feeding on the energy. It's feeding on that frequency that it likes, which let's just call it anger. It's feeding on that anger. It's going to invite its pals around. And before you know it, you've got a whole family of parasites, energetic parasites, living in the field around you, feeding off that anger. Now, for that to be successful, that parasite needs to keep you in anger. Now, of course, you know you've got an anger issue and you use your willpower to try and control your anger and your mindfulness, and you go out for long walks and you meditate and you do all these good things. But what happens the moment you stop, that parasite, that fly goes, we don't like meditation. We don't like mindfulness. We don't like joy. How can we get you back to anger? Oh, I know what we do. You come into the front door and you trip on the rug and you bang your knee. And guess what? You're back in anger. Or you open your news feed and you can see something else that some politician has done and you're back in anger. And that parasite goes, oh, thank goodness. He's back in anger. We can relax now. Our food source is safe. So to look at that from a different approach, let's first clear the space around you of those energetic parasites, of those little gremlins that are causing you to have that, to stay in that sort of bandwidth that they like. Then let's seal that space, seal that bubble, and then, only then do we start to work on the mind. Because then it's going to take less willpower. It's going to be much easier to reach that state of, actually, I can get angry. It's okay to get angry, but I'm not going to live from anger. I'm going to live from the place where I'm more stable in control. And I guess that's a very simple example of how I take people through a journey with me. Obviously, not everybody's angry. There might be course, other emotions and things like that. But that's really just how I started with thinking outside the box and looking at the world in a very, very different way.
There's what a great introduction, by the way. Thank you very much, Oliver. And I love the analogy. I love the metaphor. And what I like, I'm very much aware of the different states of emotional states that we have and the energies that those bring in, from Power versus Force, which I thought was a fantastic book, with Dr. R. Hawkins. Was it Dr. R? Was it Richard
Hawkins,
Hawkins?
yes, absolutely. And you've
Yeah,
got the
yeah,
whole
yeah.
map of life, the
Yeah,
map
the
of
map
life.
of life.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yeah. From
Got
sort of shame at the bottom to enlightenment at the top.
shame, guilt, way down at the bottom, keeps us stuck all the way to which was gratitude, love, and authenticity,
Pe-
I believe.
peace, and I think the last one's enlightenment, I think. But
Yes,
it's
absolutely.
open to interpretation. Yeah,
So there's going to be a lot of people watching this going, what a load of bollocks, right?
absolutely. Love
Yes,
it.
and I love it.
Love
But
it.
that's the conversation we're going to have now. What was it? So what's the kind of energy healing? What would you name it as you? I know it says you are the soul doctor, but what would be? Because I've used that system of, I've done NLP and I've done life coaching, and I think there's quite a few things that's like that doesn't make sense to me. But once you start taking away these really powerful parts and mechanisms to the big thing, you've got this whole, which is what I call mind management, actually, because I started taking the best things away from, or the most powerful tools that I had to create mind management. And
And I think that's sorry to interrupt you, but that shows you that it's not just one system. There is
yes,
not just one system, and
yes,
it's okay when you develop these tools, don't you? You've got all these tools that individuals have created, and you go and learn about those tools,
yeah,
the NLP, the hypnosis, the timeline therapy, all those things, and you take away those best bits, and then can you weave them into something that you do,
yeah,
and that
absolutely.
becomes you. And for me, that has been the etheric trauma release method. Okay, so uh,
So say that word again.
the etheric trauma release method.
So that would be ETM. Are we talking about EFT?
No, no,
What's
no, 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 no,
no
no,
good
no,
because I
no,
want
no,
to. I want yeah,
no,
perfect. So
no, no, no. Etheric trauma release method, ETRM.
ETR. I've never heard of it, so I am fully
No,
engrossed.
because I invented it. That's why you haven't heard of
Right, so that now we know right, perfect. So the,
it.
the title of the podcast is What is, give me the initials.
ETRM.
Perfect. Now, what is ETRM and how does it work?
Etheric trauma release method. It was something that, like I said earlier, it took me a while to get to this point where I had to really figure out how people worked. And I was really encouraged to give it a name because I would hear us doing stuff and people saying, "What is you doing?" I'm like, "Well, it's not any of those normal modalities.
Right.
It's not your hypnosis. It's not your NLP. It's not your Reiki. It's not your crystal healing. It's not your hands-on manipulation. It's something else." And so I was pushed, and then I realized that what I was doing, what I could see first was I was actually sensing and seeing the energy around people. And if we go back to just the
It's
word etheric
etheric. It
is
was
that
that word I've
first,
not heard before. So I was like,
it's the
what does
very
etheric mean?
first layer of energy around the body.
Ooh,
It is what you might see as the halo in a religious iconic painting or sculpture. And we all had the ability to see it. And for me, that was the first time I started to see energy, going back to my late 20s, early 30s, when I suddenly realized that if I looked at someone who was coming out of the sea, they would have this white glow around them. And then I sort of take a double take, and then it would disappear. And then I realized that actually salt is an incredibly powerful healer.
it is.
And so
Yeah.
salt water is cleaning that person's energetic structure, and so that it can actually glow again. And I also used to know a lot of surfers as well. I knew that if they didn't surf once a day or at least once a week, they became very nasty people.
Do you know what? I do cold water therapy in the ocean every day, in the sea in Scotland. And I've not been in for a week, and I do get, as we say in Scotland, crabbit.
Yeah, yeah,
Crabbit.
yes,
I
yes.
get crabbit when I'm not in the cold water, in the sea, not the pods, but I love to go into the sea. We're lucky I live on the Forth, and that makes so much sense to me that every time I get in the water, and I don't wear a wetsuit, I actually go in very skimpy shorts, not pretty in any way
We don't need
whatsoever.
a mental picture, sorry.
So that's the etheric, that's the halo, that's the glow that we give. Now,
Yes.
Oliver, how do we learn to become aware of that?
The first step, well, there's two things. First, we'll say it doesn't matter if you're wearing the wetsuit or not, by the way, it'll still clean your aura.
Thank you
Because
very
you,
much.
because so when it is minus 15 out there and you feel you need to put something on, uh, the wetsuit won't stop you from being cleaned. Uh, the question is, how do we learn to see that? Well, firstly, it takes a willingness. If you're not willing, you're never ever going to see. Right? And if you're not willing to go down this path, forget it. Don't waste your time. Do something else that excites you. But if you have an interest and it sort of tweaks your interest and you're excited about it, start by looking. And the easiest place for me was when people came out of the sea because there was a notice when they went in, didn't see it. When they came out, I saw it. If you're not near the sea, look at nature. Just look at a mountain in the distance or look at a tree. You will start to see the same sort of silvery white glow around there. And if you don't see it, this is, I guess, the woo woo bit, is to imagine it as there. And as you start to use your imagination, you start to see. So the more people would say to me, Oliver, what's my aura look like? I'm like, I don't know. But if I could imagine it, this is what I'd see. And when I start to use my imagination, that's how I start to turn that, I guess, ability on. So I imagine what I see, and then I realize that I'm seeing things that I haven't imagined. How could I possibly imagine that particular shade of dirty orange, right? Okay, it's not in my knowledge bank that I wouldn't, and that's how you start to see. You start to imagine, use the power of our imagination, and that just gives us that permission to, I guess, turn that ability on. So for me, I get if someone asks me what does my aura look like, I get the I know I know immediately what I see before I've even seen it. So I get the knowingness before I get to see it,
Oh, I'm
and then I
intrigued.
almost
I'm intrigued, Oliver, because you know I'm going to have to ask the question.
yeah, of course you are. I love it.
You know I'm going to have to ask the question. Like, bearing in mind you've never met me and we only talked for about 5 minutes on the phone. Do you want me to take the background off? Do you want to take the background off in the Zoom? Would that help?
uh, no, it look, it would help, but it does. You don't need to. You don't need to.
Perfect.
Okay.
So what's
Okay.
Cuddy's aura?
Well, firstly, your aura changes on your mood at the time. Okay. So right now, the dominant color in your aura is blue. Okay. Uh, and that makes sense from an intellectual point of view because you're talking, and we often think of the throat chakra
Throat
as the blue
chakra. Yes.
center.
Yes.
So if I looked at you right now, you've got the sort of blue U shape around here. There is quite a lot of white around the top, around the crown here. So obviously means at some point you are bringing information in, challenge, bringing stuff through. Around the bottom, it's a bit more difficult to see, obviously because you've got the zoom background on. But it's that blue right now, which is the predominant one. And,
Mm,
and it's interesting that it's a U shape. So
a smile.
a smile. Yeah, a smile.
So if you were to say, well, Cuddy, I'm looking at your aura, what would that, would you be able to, because I do find it fascinating. I'll tell you the reason I find things like this fascinating is once we dial into a different frequency, which I'm all about, I know that different things happen. And I think the frequencies that we have been long lost. And I think there's a whole history of information that we don't know about, but people tune into it. And I remember a long time ago when I was going through what I was going through, and I was like, and I bought a 5 set CD of How to Become
Mhm.
Enlightened from a car boot, actually. And I listened to the audio. There was 5 audio discs, CDs, and I listened to them, and I was like, I actually loved it, and I enjoyed it, and it taught me so much about yes, woo woo, but frequencies and learning, and the power of letting go. When you say
Mhm.
there, you sit there and go, "I'm completely enlightened," means you're not.
Absolutely, yes, yes.
It's ego that dictates I am something. Oh, I am now enlightened. No, that's not
No,
enlightenment. You've got to let go of the fear. Because I remember the guy who was saying, I used to walk around going, "Oh, I'm so enlightened now. I feel so much amazing." And then I was like, no, it's not. That's not how it works. Enlightenment is just being without a judgment or a.
Exactly.
And I am not saying I'm enlightened, and I'm not saying I'm not enlightened, so I can say I'm enlightened because I'm not. But I do find it fascinating. So when you're down in London, right?
I am, yes, yes.
Are you walking around and just seeing colours everywhere then?
No,
Until you,
I don't look.
yes.
I,
So until
I,
you tune
and
in,
yes,
yeah,
I don't look. I have to tune in. Uh, and the reason I stopped tuning in, should we say, I used to because it's very draining.
yes, it would take your
Um,
power away.
it's like it's like you're constantly being bombarded with other people's stuff, and especially, and this is where it gets quite scary. Well, not scary because I don't find it scary, but other people might. Is late at night when people are coming out of clubs and divey bars, drunk or on drugs, right? Because then you really see the energetic parasites coming in, and they are. I see them as these sort of black slugs, spiders that crawl up people. Often there'll be heavy stuff around the head, uh, and often we just go, oh, that's just a hangover, right? Well, yeah, it's a lot more than that. You've lowered your frequency way down, your vibration way down low, and you've attracted all these things. And if you're in a very dark, dungy dive bar, you're going to pick up a lot more than you would if you were in uh, somewhere much lighter. And when people ask me, and usually because I'd had a few myself, people say, "Oh, what do you see?" And I'd tell them, and then they'd be like, "Oh," and then I'd be like, "Well, I actually don't like seeing that either." So that's when I really shut it off. But that's why, if you've got a hangover, that's why a shower is so important because a shower starts to wash all those bugs away. All right, a swim in
And
the
it's
sea would be even more amazing.
Yeah, I actually found it quite fascinating when you said when you go in salt water, it actually cleanses you because isn't in witchcraft or when you're summoning, I don't do it, but there's always the folklore of putting salt around yourself and don't break the salt chain because the salt is the protector.
Yes, a protector. You again, we've got lots of traditions like that, and if you go and look them up, there's lots of different things. The thing is that is you've got to have a better understanding. You can't just go, oh, I'm just going to put a circle of salt around me and be protected because it doesn't always work like that, right? you know. And when you don't know, you don't know. And often when you don't know and you open yourself up to these things, guess what? The wrong stuff comes in, but you don't know. Uh, I've dealt quite a lot with people who've lost someone close to them very suddenly.
Yeah,
And energetically, what happens there, just from a purely energetic system, their energy body literally shatters. It's like taking a
loss and
crystal
grief.
jug and boom, and it just shatters. And then they spend that grieving period trying to put themselves back together and different fragments. And in that grief period, they are vulnerable to whatever's outside. So one particular lady lost her husband.
Yeah.
She was fairly psychic, and she thought that the being talking to her was her husband.
Oh, and it wasn't.
And she invited this energy in, and of course it
Oh,
wasn't. And it was, let's just better words, a nasty piece of work. Uh,
oh, because
made
he
her
was preying
smoke,
on the weakness. He was preying on the weakness.
absolutely, and made her smoke. And if she didn't listen to him, she'd put the cigarettes out in her arm. So she actually had her arm burnt. Every time she tried to break away from him, she'd find herself putting the uh, the cigarettes out on her arm. Uh, And I met her through, well, she needed an exorcism, so and I'm that's what the session I went with her with through her was to actually clear her of this particular
Are you an
energy.
exorcist as well?
Well, yeah, so I that's why I tend to see the dark stuff before I see the light stuff. So
Ah,
yes, yeah,
I did not know this.
yeah. It's not on my website, but
It's not like we advertise. It's not the front page of the landing page. I do exorcisms as well.
maybe it should be. Maybe it should be, Cuddy. Maybe it should be.
Well,
Maybe
that's
it's
a
time to
scary
change
thing
that.
for you, isn't it? Because you have to have that protection and that shield for yourself.
And that comes through time. That comes through understanding and knowing yourself. And also, what I've noticed is that I probably do a lot of energy clearing work on people the first time I see them without even telling them, right? Because it's not necessary for me to tell you, oh, by the way, there was a gremlin sitting on your shoulder. Most people don't want to know that. Okay. Now, that is very different from the case study here, the lady who had invited this being
Mm.
in, because that was definitely a full-on exorcism where this being was living in her aura. It wasn't living inside of her. Okay, because what happens then, if that entity moves inside of you, the body starts to die very quickly.
Yes.
So the host dies. So then that energy has to find another host. So living alongside of her, keeping her in a very, very low vibrational state, right? Not couldn't do everything, any sort of wellness stuff. Uh, by the way, a month later, she stopped smoking. She was a bundle of joy. Her social circle had changed. She was going into the playgrounds and breaking up fights and all sorts of incredible things. An amazing lady now, really amazing. But just shows you how these energies can trick you. So if you're opening the door to this and putting a salt circle around you and hoping that you're going to be protected, well, chances are there's a back door you've left open. So don't necessarily go down that way until you know.
So, Oliver, I've got 1,001 questions, to be fair, because this is fascinating. I genuinely look having an open conversation about this, especially about something that is so out there, and I've not heard about this, and I think that's why it's piqued my interest because I'm always looking into. I mean, I do it for the self learning for myself because I know there's other things out there that we're not talking about. So by the way, well done to Joshua for introducing us for this one. So, what made you get into it? What was the turning point for Oliver to start thinking he wants to learn this?
So I was very fortunate to go to university in Scotland, Glasgow.
Right. Okay.
Right, right. Not that I ever saw you around, but I mean, you
No,
would have
because
been
I'm in
around.
Edinburgh.
Well, there you go. And I was in. I was. It was my second year, and I was in a shared accommodation, renting a room out of a student accommodation, student digs, and really nice place. And I I woke up um, with the feeling that I'd been thrown off a roller coaster going straight down, and I was completely white, drenched. The whole bed was wet and sweat. And I remember in my head having this conversation with something, and the words that came out of my mouth were, "What will you do for me?" And at that moment, whatever was inside of me left, because obviously it couldn't do anything for me. And this was, I don't know what time of the day. I turned the light on. I didn't know what to do. I was on this mattress on the floor. Uh, I, I I opened the sort of bedside table, and there was a Bible there. I didn't know if that was the right thing to do or not, so I didn't know where to start either. So I started with chapter 1, verse 1 at the beginning of Genesis, and I started reading until I eventually sort of dozed off. And there was no one I could share that experience with because obviously my family is all in South Africa.
Mm.
And in those days, there were, you had the odd email, but you didn't, and letters, you didn't have, in fact, we didn't even have email, I don't think. You wrote letters, and I wasn't going to write this on a letter to anybody, so I kept it to myself. But some of the people around me started to not have experiences like that, but tell stories. And one particular friend uh, uh, talked about how the house that they lived in was possessed and had a poltergeist. And it used to throw spoons around the room, and those big old fashioned video recorders where you press the button and went ka-chunk, and out came the tape. It would stop a movie while they were watching it, and then they started to blame things on it, and it started to get worse and worse and worse until I think at one point the mother said it was time to move. But definitely throwing things around. And I was listening to this and going, actually, there's more to this world than we realize. I've had this experience where I've questioned something, and I guess that was the turning point for me, where I knew that there was something else, couldn't really express it to anybody, but I knew I had to investigate it further. And I sort of forgot about it for the next few years. And I'd gone into sort of, by that stage, I'd gone into sort of more the hypnosis and the NLP and timeline and those sort of modalities. But this was always there at the back, this experience. And as it turns out, about 15 years later, I then find myself going down that same route again, where a lady said, "Can you help me do this little house blessing? Let's bless this new office space." And oh, that's fantastic. Let's bless this little office space. And I just thought, it'll be a few, spray a bit of holy water around, a few little rituals, a bit of clearing of burning some Epsom salts to clear out the bad energy. Salt again. And it wasn't. It turned into well, pretty much what happened. There's a particular ritual that you do, and what happened is that the wall just burst on fire. A brick wall just started burning. It was
Visually
like someone
for
had
you or physically?
physically.
Wow.
So much so that it turned on the fire sprays.
Wow.
And with it, and those, by the way, are amazing, because within about 30 seconds, that fire was no, 10 seconds, that fire was out, and the whole place was almost underwater. Right? They're so good. But in that moment, I was severely contaminated by whatever energy this was, and I started to find myself becoming aggressive, argumentative. I remember in the street having a full blown row with somebody and swearing at him, thinking, really, really bad, and it wasn't me. And I, but I felt myself being justified in that process. And then the person who I'd done this work with realized that I'd been contaminated, and she then got someone else involved when I had to go through an exorcism myself, where this energy had to be removed from my field. So that is, I guess, how I really started to turn down this. And then I started to sense, then I started to see more. And then I started to see, like I said, the darker stuff, the blacker stuff, and the stuff that nobody wants to believe is there. The stuff
Yeah.
of horror movies.
Yes.
And it used to scare me. It doesn't scare me now. Yeah, now I don't.
Wow. So are you an actual, I mean, I don't understand how exorcism works, but do you not have to go through the Catholic Church to become an exorcist?
No.
No,
There's
no.
many different forms of
Perfect.
exorcism.
That's
I'm not religious in any sense, shape, or form. I don't subscribe to any doctrine. My religion is me. What you see is what you get.
good.
I
Good religion.
like I use bits and pieces from different things, but these days I don't even use those tools that I learned all those years ago, because I am the tool myself. I don't need to use other people's tools. I have I am the tool. I know how to do it. And I've been caught out so many times. They've been sneaky little critters that
So how do you keep the shield up? What is it? What's three things that somebody could do? Because I think three things and three tips for somebody to keep their shield up, their halo up, so that we don't let the parasites in. Because I find this fascinating, to be fair, genuinely fascinating. How does somebody, repair their own shield, their own aura?
the first thing is to have an awareness that you actually have one. Okay.
Mm.
the second thing, the fact that you go for a swim in ice cold water every day, absolutely fantastic, right? Water is a powerful, powerful cleanser.
Yes, it is. Yes.
So powerful. It doesn't just clean the mud off and the dirt and the dust and the grime. If you have that intention, it'll clear all of you.
Mm.
Okay. So obviously, a lot of people don't have access to the sea or any fresh body of water. A shower or a bath works amazing. If you've got a bath, cup full of salt, pour it
Epsom
in the
salt.
bath,
Yeah, but you can buy
Epsom
salt.
salt,
Yes. Yeah.
right? And soak in that for a few minutes. That'll clear things off nicely. Don't have a bath. Shower is great. You could wet yourself, turn the water off, and then rub salt your skin. Or you could forget about the salt and create an intention for yourself. Now, intention's a fantastic thing. We all have these intentions of things we want to do in our life. And you might have had intentions, but they've been floating around your head. And as soon as you've spoken that intention, it sounds like complete rubbish. Maybe you've written a speech, and then you're going to read it out loud. You realize what you've written, which was sounded so beautiful in your head, when you actually read it out loud, didn't sound very good at all. So we've always got to speak our intentions, because that
Mm.
way we get clarity to them. We get into clarity. So if I've had a bad day, life, the universe, meetings all gone wrong, go for a shower, and I speak an intention to the shower, to the water, to wash away my bad day, to cleanse my aura, to fill me with whatever I want. But it's got to be your words. Can't be my words. It's got to be your words. So what do you want? To have a restful night's sleep, to be able to do the next podcast, to be able to find that question that takes you to 250,000 subscribers rather than 100,000, whatever that question is, it's got to come from you. And when you speak that with clarity and your voice, so I always imagine the thought going down the body to that will center, which is just below the navel. That's what our will center, that's what our hara energy center, that point that's got all that power. Then take it up past the heart, where you're going to add some love to it. And then you're going to manifest those words. You're going to create those words with your breath, which is your life force, through your voice box. And you speak those words, you speak that sound out to the water. The water's going to respond. Going to respond. And you're going to feel that cleansing on some level, even if you don't feel things.
This is where spelling comes from. The word spelling, when we spell a word, we are
Yes.
spelling it into affirmation. I think this is a very old term that a lot of people have missed out on, but
Yes.
that was where spelling came from.
Yes, absolutely. You're creating a spell.
By
And
spelling
that's
out a word, it's not just punctuation, it's not just, A, B, C, D, E. You're spelling something into existence.
yes.
How
Yes.
often do you think people, without realizing, spell the slugs and the gremlins in?
Uh, well, it's if you don't know, you don't know. I think that's a big
Correct.
thing. So
Yes.
if your people always tell me, "Oh, Oliver, I was told I just said trust my intuition and I'll be okay." Well, if you're swimming in the sewer, it doesn't matter what your intuition is telling you. You're in there, you know,
You
left,
can
right,
swear.
up,
It's all
down,
right. You
backwards and
can
forward.
swear. You're all right. You can swear.
You're in the shit. You're in the shit. Okay. Doesn't matter which way you go. And what you need is not to turn left or right. You need someone to pick you up and take you out and put you on the pavement.
Mm.
Then, guess what? Your intuition has more choices to go forward, backwards, left, or right. Doesn't mean you're clean, but you've got more choices. And that's the way I look at it. So, getting people to firstly be aware of where they're at. If your favorite location is I think let's rephrase that. I think a lot of people have this idea when you go into certain places you feel really comfortable, and other places where you just feel uncomfortable. There's just something not right about it. And not everybody, but a lot of people are waking up to the idea that we have this sort of guidance system that we go into a particular place and it's just not feeling right. And in that situation, I would say just get out. Now, of
Did
course, it
that with
might
a
be just
house.
because.
I did that with a house. When we were looking at houses, there was one house that I went into that my wife wanted, and I went, no. She was like, why? I went, don't like it. I said, I can't explain it. And the strangest thing is, my mother-in-law came out for a cigarette and she went, I don't like that house. I went, no, me neither. How weird is that? I said, I do not like that. And it was a lovely house. And my mother-in-law, and I've always gotten really well with my mother-in-law, she was like, no. So my wife came out, she goes, oh, I really like this house. And a moment, no, you're not getting it. And I went, I have to be honest with you. I agree with you, your mum. I said, nah, it's an energy thing. It was just off. It was just off. And we'd looked at this house, which we got in, and it was strange. It's because there's a wide staircase, and I'm huge. I mean, Oliver, when we get the chance to meet, I'm 6'2" and 4 feet wide. So I needed a wide staircase because I'd been brought up in a household with a small staircase, and I was like, do you know, I just want to be able to walk up the stairs without bouncing off the walls. And it was an energy thing. It was an energy thing. So I've got a question, and I think it's a good question. You please tell me if not. If somebody watches this podcast, they went, "Oh my God, I need an Oliver Dolby. I need an Oliver Dolby to help sort me out." And they come to you thinking they want an exorcism or they want ETRM, but you know by looking at the aura, there's no slugs, there's no gremlins. What do you tell them, or what do you do?
So there's different steps. So it firstly, it's very unlikely that there won't be any energy stuck in the aura because it's unless you consciously cleaning it, taking your salt baths, swimming in the sea, taking conscious showers, as I sort of call them now, there's going to be stuff there. There's going to be heaviness. It might not. And think about we take on other people's problems sometimes. We sometimes take on the weight of the world, and that is very much visible, not necessarily as a slug we like, but just as a grey heaviness, like a weight. Sometimes it's actually very physical for people. It can be like that weight across the shoulders or that sort of bowed down, sort of stoopedness that comes on. But if someone is looking after the energy and there's nothing there, the first question I ask themselves is do they love themselves? And of course, everybody goes, of course I love myself.
Yes.
But actually, there's knowing intellectually whether you love yourself or there's actually loving yourself. And to know intellectually, oh, I love myself because that's the right thing to do, is not really love. That's just an energy. So, and that's another one of my passions is helping people heal their hearts, heal
Yeah.
the broken hearts.
Yeah.
Because when you heal that broken heart, when you take that broken heart and bring all those pieces together and you start to heal it, look, it doesn't mean the heart can't break again. Okay, that's constantly going to happen, but you bring that heart together, you start to know yourself a little bit more. And when you know you and you love you, even if you're doing something completely wrong, even if you've gone into guilt, you can still love yourself for being guilty. Then you start to really empower yourself. And from that place of empowerment, then you start to make the right choices in your life. You start to come on, podcasts like with Cuddy.
Yeah. So I have got one more question, which I think is a powerful question. So I'm asking questions because we do this in flow and we do this on organic, see where the podcast goes. So as I'm watching this, I mean, as I'm doing this podcast with you, there's questions that pop up as if I was watching this, I'd want to know the answer to that question. So the last question I've got for you, Oliver, and thank you so much for sharing your time, because I'm sure this is not going to be a short answer, is where do the slugs, the spiders, the bad energies come from?
We live in this world of duality. We live in light and
Duality.
dark.
Yeah.
Duality, light
Yeah.
and dark, black and white, male and female, uh, inside, outside, up and down,
Yin and
left and
yang.
right, the whole thing. And so if there is light, there has to be dark. We have the daylight, we have the night, we have the two. Then the question is, where do they come from? Well, just by saying that, it sort of says that they have to exist. But then we have human sphere coming into it, the mind sphere, us fearful beings.
Mm.
And we are taught fears Have you ever seen a young child playing with a spider? No fear at all. Mother comes along, goes, ah, spider, right? Or even father comes along, goes, ah, there's a spider. That child now starts to become fearful of spiders based on a reaction that they got from a parent, grandmother, it doesn't matter who it is, a sibling, that spiders are scary. They've just created a monster in their world. They've started to create that monster. And the mind starts to build that monster up. And you start to add mental energy to it, maybe spoken words to it. You start to build this monster up.
Spelling.
Now imagine you wake up in the night and there's someone in your room. And you, oh, there's someone in the room. And you turn the light on, and it's a coat that's fallen off the back of the door or something. And you've seen the bit of light on that, and suddenly that monster is not so scary anymore because you realize it's the coat. And in fact, that film Monsters Inc., right, where the monsters go out and collect nightmares. That's exactly, they're all lovable creatures, or one or two of them.
I often think that Monsters Inc. was more of a realist story than a sci-fi or a kids movie because the whole is it dreadodrome or nonochrome the hormone that
They
is secreted and they
yes.
go around scare him and collect him. I don't. Sometimes I'm like Monsters Inc. is not just a kids movie. There's actually a moral of a story there. And I often and look, by the way, if anyone's watching this at this point, you'll be like, Cuddy, that is so full of shit. But there is so many kids' movies that I'm like, they're not stories. They're letting you know what's going on, but they're letting children become comfortable with that. Now,
Yes,
Monsters Inc. is
exactly
a
that.
powerful story because it shows the kids how to not be scared of the monsters. But there's a part of that, yeah,
100% agree with you on that one. 100% agree with you. And it just shows you that if you view something as scary, it becomes very scary. It actually becomes that monster. And we are so good at creating monsters in our own world.
yes.
And who's created them? You've created them. I've created them. And so now when I look at other people and their monsters in them, I don't see them as monsters. And of course, when you don't see something as a monster, you start to take its power away.
You
You start to turn the
disempower.
light on it. And so when that big scary monster is about to jump you, you turn the light on, suddenly that monster goes, oh, there's light. I don't like light, and starts to small down and shrink down to the smallest size it could possibly be so that it can't be seen in the light. And and so that's why, but you've got to be the light. Okay,
Yes, we
you've
have
got
to
to
be
be the
able to
light.
bring the light.
Yeah. So there's no point me saying, uh, yeah, I'm going to turn the torch on you. I'm going to put the strobe light on you because that's not going to work against somebody's monster. That's just going to annoy them. But
Mm.
and this is where the exorcism side, yes, there are religious tools and you can belong to different exorcism circles and what have you, or not, but you've got to hold light. You've got to hold light. You've got to be bright in your light. And also you've got to realize when you don't want to get involved. There's things that you want to battle and things you don't want to battle. So you've got to hold the light. You've got to, in many ways, just be the light. And this is where we go for another sort of tangent again. Be the light, uh, but it's not intellectually knowing it. It's actually being it,
Being it. It comes back to that word being.
and it always comes back to being. And I've been times in my life where I've intellectually known procedure, but I've been shit scared of what I've been doing,
Mm.
and I've never managed to banish that entity. Then I've never managed to put it to the other side, to send it back home, to because I've been so fearful. And that way, because I'm fearful, it has control over me through my fear.
Wow, this is powerful stuff, Oliver.
So your fears control you, and others can use your fears to control you, both humans and the unseen world, if they desire to. But if you aren't scared of that anymore, and you're in that place of with a healed heart and able to love no matter what, to love that demon, not to love it as a friend, not to love it as a buddy you go down to the pub and have a beer with,
Shadow
but to
work.
shadow work, yes.
Do
Yeah.
you use shadow work as well, then, Oliver?
This is shadow work. So this
That
is
so
real shadow work.
ETRM is shadow work.
Um,
It's a
yes and
good
no.
question. It's a good
It's
question.
a very good question. It's a very
Yeah.
good question, and no one's ever asked me that before. So yes and no.
But we have to understand what holds us
But,
and what creates the fear. Then, yeah,
because with ETRM, I'm not just working with the fears. I'm also working with, and with I work with the fears, then it would be shadow work. But I'm also working with other emotions.
yeah, of course.
So sometimes people are stuck. They just can't get to the place of love. They're not in fear, but they just can't get there. And so when I look at the etheric trauma release method, I'm looking at it from multiple aspects. I'm looking at it from you as the physical, but you also as the past and the future, and also as you of all the other aspects of self that you could possibly be. So
Mm,
right now, if you weren't doing the podcast, you'd be doing something else.
yeah,
Potentially that exists in another, I guess, parallel reality. So we
yeah.
have all these infinite parallel realities of other things we could be doing if we hadn't chosen to be here right now today. If the viewers hadn't chosen to tune into this podcast today, they could be doing something else. So those aspects of self do exist. Uh, and so can we clear all aspects of them in one system, in one setting? And that's what ETRM does. It
Wow.
clears all aspects of self in one go.
I genuinely love this, Oliver. I did not know what we were going to be talking about today. Genuinely, I
Nor
didn't.
did I. Nor did
No,
I.
no, I didn't. I didn't. And the passion and the knowledge around the way that you see the world and see the challenges that we have is different, and I like that.
No one wants to be stuck in a box.
No,
And
absolutely not.
and I think boxes need to be broken down because
Oh yeah.
boxes limit us. And when you're limited, you can't reach where you're supposed to be going. How many people give up on their potential just because someone told them they couldn't?
Yeah.
Right? All of us at some point have been told, no, you can't do that
Yeah.
by a parent, by a teacher, by a co-worker, by a lover. It doesn't matter, right? Limiting us from our potential. So
Oliver.
yeah, I'm a firm believer that if I hold you back in any way, shape, or form, I'm the one committing evil on you because I'm not allowing you to express your true self to the world or to stop you from being you.
Yes. Yeah, I try to be very present about that when especially when I'm coaching and doing things. I'm always, yeah, we're all so easily led, aren't we? And I find that principle really nice that we never. Same with leadership. It's about getting the answers out of. Yeah, I love it. By the way, what a fascinating conversation, Oliver. And I am fully aware of how passionate you talk about that subject, and I think it's amazing. And I've never heard of it. So the title of the podcast is going to be "Do I Need a Therapist or an Exorcist?"
Well, that should get you up to 100,000
There we go, because
subscribers.
that's going to be the powerful question, and that should intrigue people. Oliver, is there anything else you want to say in the podcast before we wrap up?
uh, no, it's been an absolute pleasure being on it, and I'm glad we've gone down this different rabbit hole from normal. Uh,
Absolutely. As always, big love from Cuddy. It's a pleasure to have you on the podcast, Oliver. I hope to get you back soon again because I think we've got more things to be talking about. However,
Absolutely.
please remember if it's in the mind or the ethereum, it can be managed. And we'll see you on the next episode of the Mind Management Mentors podcast.